The shuttle descended through the thick atmosphere of the planet Cetheris 7, its engines straining against the crushing gravity. Inside, a group of young cadets sat in silence, their faces tense but determined. These were no ordinary cadets. They were Deathworlders, born and raised on one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. Life on Cetheris 7 was a constant battle for survival. Giant predators roamed the surface, storms tore apart entire landscapes, and even the air could kill if you weren't careful. But these challenges had shaped them into something extraordinary, survivors who thrived under pressure. Ryan Harker, the leader of the group, stared out the window as the academy came into view. His sharp blue eyes scanned the massive structure floating above the planet's toxic clouds. It was a place where the best and brightest from across the galaxy trained to become officers in the galactic military. Ryan wasn't sure he belonged here. He didn't care much for rules or traditions, but he knew this was an opportunity to prove himself and his team. Behind him, Lily Dawson leaned forward, her dark hair tied back into a tight braid. She tapped her fingers nervously on her knee, though her expression remained calm. "You think they'll let us fight right away?" she asked, glancing at Ryan. "If we're lucky," Ryan replied without looking back. His voice was steady, confident, "but don't expect them to go easy on us." Jake Monroe, sitting across from Lily, smirked. "Easy? That's not how we do things anyway." Jake was all energy and bravado, the kind of guy who charged headfirst into danger without thinking twice. He cracked his knuckles, already itching for action. Maya Torres, quiet and reserved, adjusted the small device strapped to her wrist. It was a custom-built hacking tool, something she designed herself back on Cetheris 7. While the others relied on brute strength or quick reflexes, Mia's power lay in her mind. She could break into any system, unravel any code, and she planned to use that skill to give her team an edge. When the shuttle docked, the cadets stepped out onto the gleaming metal platform of the academy. The contrast between their rough, worn uniforms and the pristine surroundings was stark. Around them, other cadets moved with purpose, chatting and laughing. But when they noticed the newcomers, the chatter died down. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Are those Deathworlders? They look like they just crawled out of a swamp. They say they can kill a man with their bare hands." Ryan ignored the comments, leading his team toward the main hall. They weren't here to make friends. They were here to win. Inside, an instructor greeted them with a clipboard in hand. "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy," he said, his tone polite but distant. "You've been assigned to participate in our annual war simulation. It's a test of strategy, leadership, and endurance. Most teams take months of simulated time to complete it." Lily raised an eyebrow. "Months?" "Yes," the instructor confirmed. "It's designed to mimic a 10-year galactic conflict. Winning requires patience and precision." Ryan exchanged a glance with his team. Patience wasn't exactly their strong suit. Precision, however, was another story. As they were led to their quarters, Jake couldn't help but grin. 10 years, huh? Sounds like they've never met anyone from Cetheris 7. Mia nodded, her fingers dancing over the screen of her device. "We'll show them what we're made of." Later that evening, Ryan gathered his team in their shared quarters. The room was small and utilitarian, but none of them cared about comfort. They huddled around a makeshift table, discussing their plan. "We're not playing by their rules," Ryan said firmly. "This isn't about dragging things out. We hit hard, fast, and leave nothing behind." Lily leaned in, her sharp eyes narrowing. "I'll handle strategy. If we strike at the right points, we can cripple both factions early. And I'll get us inside their systems," Mia added, holding up her wrist device. "They won't know what hit them." Jake grinned, cracking his neck. "Just point me at the enemy, and I'll take care of the rest." For the first time since arriving, Ryan allowed himself a small smile. Whatever challenges lay ahead, one thing was certain: The galaxy was about to learn exactly what Deathworlders were capable of. The next morning, the Deathworlders gathered in a large briefing room along with other cadet teams. The walls were lined with screens displaying maps of the simulated star system they would soon be fighting over. Ryan stood at the back of the room with his arms crossed, watching as an instructor explained the rules of the simulation. Lily scribbled notes on a small pad, while Jake leaned against the wall, looking bored. Mia quietly fiddled with her wrist device, already scanning for potential weaknesses in the system. "This is not just a game," the instructor said, pacing in front of the room. "It's a test of your ability to think strategically and adapt under pressure. You'll command fleets, manage resources, and engage in combat across multiple fronts. The goal is simple: total domination of the contested star system within 10 simulated years." Ryan raised an eyebrow. 10 years sounded like a lifetime to him. On HFY 7, battles were won or lost in seconds. He glanced at his team, who shared his unspoken skepticism. This wasn't their kind of fight, but that didn't mean they couldn't turn it into one. After the briefing, the teams dispersed to prepare. Ryan pulled his group into a quiet corner of the academy. "We need to move fast," he said, lowering his voice. "Most of these teams will waste time building alliances or fortifying positions. That gives us an opening." Lily nodded, spreading out her notes on a nearby table. "If we strike early and hard, we can disrupt their plans before they even get started. But we need to know where to hit." Mia tapped a few commands into her wrist device, pulling up a holographic map of the star system. "I've been analyzing their networks," she said. "Both factions have key vulnerabilities: supply lines, communication hubs, defense grids. If we target those first, we can cripple them quickly." Jake grinned, cracking his knuckles. "So we go straight for the throat." "Exactly," Ryan replied. "But we do it smart. No unnecessary risks. We hit one faction, then the other, keeping them off balance. They won't know what's happening until it's too late." As the others finalized their strategy, Ryan took a moment to observe the other cadets. Most of them seemed focused on traditional tactics: building armies, setting up bases, planning long-term campaigns. They were playing by the book, following the rules laid out by the instructors. It was exactly what Ryan expected, and it was why they wouldn't stand a chance against his team. Back in their quarters, the Deathworlders made final preparations. Lily double-checked her strategies, marking critical locations on the map. Jake reviewed flight paths and attack patterns, committing them to memory. Maya fine-tuned her hacking tools, ensuring they could bypass any security measures the simulation threw at them. Ryan paced the room, running through every possible scenario in his mind. "You ready?" Lily asked, breaking the silence. Ryan stopped pacing and looked at his team. "We're always ready." When the simulation began, the Deathworlders sprang into action. While other teams hesitated, debating their first moves, Ryan's team executed their plan with precision. Jake piloted a stolen fighter deep into enemy territory, disabling satellites and cutting off surveillance. Mia hacked into one faction's central database, planting false orders that caused confusion among their ranks. Meanwhile, Lily coordinated ambushes, striking supply convoys and crippling reinforcements. Within minutes, chaos erupted across the battlefield. Other cadets scrambled to respond, but the Deathworlders stayed 2 steps ahead. Their relentless assault left opponents reeling, unsure how to counter such aggressive tactics. Even the instructors monitoring the simulation exchanged uneasy glances, whispering about the unprecedented speed and ferocity of the Deathworlders' attacks. By the end of the first hour of simulated time, the Deathworlders had dismantled half of one faction's fleet without losing a single ship. For the first time, Ryan allowed himself a faint smile. This was only the beginning. The simulation raged on, and the Deathworlders continued their relentless assault, while other cadet teams struggled to adapt to the chaos unfolding around them. Ryan's team moved with a precision that seemed almost unnatural. They weren't just fighting, they were dismantling their opponents piece by piece. Jake Monroe was in his element. Sitting in the cockpit of a captured fighter ship, he pushed the vessel far beyond its intended limits. The controls vibrated under his hands as he weaved through enemy fire, dodging blasts with ease. His target was a heavily guarded space station that served as one faction's primary communication hub. Most teams would have avoided such a risky mission, but Jake thrived on danger. "Stay sharp," Mia's voice crackled over the comms. Their defense grid just went online. "I've got this," Jake replied, grinning despite the tension. He pulled the ship into a steep dive, skimming dangerously close to the station's surface. Alarms blared as automated turrets locked onto his position, but Jake was already ahead of them. With a flick of his wrist, he deployed a decoy drone, drawing the turret's fire away from his ship. In the chaos, he slipped past the defenses and launched a volley of missiles at the station's core. The explosion lit up the simulated battlefield, sending shockwaves through the surrounding area. The space station crumbled, cutting off the faction's ability to coordinate its forces. Back in the control room, instructors watched in stunned silence as the once dominant faction descended into disarray. Meanwhile, Mia Torres worked her magic behind the scenes. Using her wrist device, she infiltrated the second faction's logistics network. Her fingers flew across the screen as lines of code scrolled rapidly before her eyes. She didn't need maps or external guidance. Her mind was a map of its own, tracking every connection and vulnerability in the system. Within moments, she unleashed a virus that spread like wildfire, corrupting supply routes and leaving entire fleets stranded without fuel or ammunition. "They're falling apart," Lily announced, monitoring the situation from their makeshift command center. Her sharp eyes scanned the holographic display, analyzing troop movements and resource levels. "Without supplies, they can't hold their ground." Ryan nodded, his expression unreadable. "Good. Now let's hit them where it hurts." Lily pointed to a cluster of planets on the map. "Their main colony is here. If we take it out, they'll lose morale and manpower." Ryan turned to Jake. "You up for another run?" "Always," Jake replied, already heading back to his ship. As Jake prepared for his next mission, Lily coordinated a series of ambushes closer to home. She directed small strike teams to harass enemy outposts, forcing the factions to divide their attention. Each attack was swift and brutal, leaving little time for retaliation. The Deathworlders' unpredictability kept their opponents guessing, unable to mount an effective counterattack. Other cadets began to notice the carnage. Some stared at their screens in disbelief, watching as their carefully laid plans unraveled. A few tried to regroup, pooling resources and forming temporary alliances, but it was too late. The Deathworlders had already seized the initiative, and there was no stopping them now. Instructors monitoring the simulation exchanged uneasy glances. One of them leaned forward, studying the data streaming across his console. "This isn't supposed to happen," he muttered. "No team has ever caused this much damage in such a short time." Another instructor shook her head. "They're not playing by the rules." "That's the problem," the first instructor replied. "They're rewriting them." By the end of the first hour of real time, the Deathworlders had achieved what most teams couldn't accomplish in weeks of simulated combat. Both factions were on the brink of collapse, their forces scattered and demoralized. Yet Ryan's team showed no signs of slowing down. For them, this was more than a test. It was a demonstration of everything they'd learned growing up on Sci-Fi 7. Survival wasn't about fairness or patience. It was about doing whatever it took to win. As the battle raged on, Ryan allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. He glanced at his team, Lily strategizing, Jake flying recklessly, Mia hacking with effortless skill, and felt a flicker of pride. Together, they were unstoppable. And the galaxy was about to find out exactly what that meant. By now, the simulated battlefield was a mess. The two factions were struggling to hold themselves together, their forces stretched thin and their leaders confused. Meanwhile, the Deathworlders pressed forward with relentless energy. Ryan Harker stood at the center of their makeshift command post, his sharp eyes scanning the holographic display. He didn't need to say much. His team already knew what to do. Jake Monroe returned from his latest mission, grinning like a predator who had just caught its prey. "Their colony is gone," he announced, propping into a chair. "Took out their main base without breaking a sweat." "Good work," Ryan said, nodding. But his tone was serious. "We're not done yet. Both factions are weak, but they're still dangerous. We finish this now." Lily Dawson leaned over the map, her fingers tracing potential targets. "If we hit their remaining strongholds at the same time, we can end this quickly. They won't have time to recover." Mia Torres nodded, her focus fixed on her wrist device. "I've mapped out their defenses. There are blind spots we can exploit. If Jake creates distractions in one area, I can disable their shields in another." Ryan looked at his team, seeing the determination in their eyes. "Let's move." The final phase of their plan unfolded with precision. Jake led a squadron of captured ships, launching daring raids on enemy positions. His reckless flying kept the faction's forces occupied, drawing their attention away from Mia's covert operations. She worked quietly, slipping through firewalls and disabling critical systems. One by one, the faction's defenses crumbled under her relentless assault. Lily coordinated everything from behind the scenes, her voice calm and steady over the comms. "Jake, pull back from Sector 4. They're setting a trap." "Mia, focus on the eastern grid." "Ryan, you need to move your squad closer to the central hub." Ryan obeyed without hesitation, leading a small strike team toward the heart of one faction's territory. The journey was dangerous, with enemy patrols lurking around every corner. But Ryan's instincts were sharp, honed by years of surviving on Sci-Fi 7. He guided his team through narrow escape routes and hidden pathways, avoiding detection until they reached their target. When they arrived, the central hub was heavily guarded. Ryan signaled for silence, motioning for his team to take positions. With a swift hand gesture, he gave the order to attack. The Deathworlders moved as one, striking with brutal efficiency. Within minutes, the guards were neutralized, and Ryan planted explosives at the core of the facility. "Fall back," he ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos. The team retreated just as the explosives detonated, sending flames roaring into the sky. The explosion wiped out the faction's last line of defense, leaving them completely vulnerable. At the same time, Jake's squadron launched a full-scale assault on the second faction's stronghold. Their weapons tore through enemy ships, while Mia's virus thread through the remaining systems, shutting down engines and weapons. The factions tried to fight back, but it was futile. Their forces were scattered, their resources depleted, and their morale shattered. In the control room, instructors watched in stunned disbelief. The simulation had been designed to last months, or even years, of simulated time. Yet the Deathworlders had achieved total domination in less than an hour of real time. Some of the cadets monitoring the exercise stared at their screens, unable to comprehend what they'd just witnessed. "They're monsters," one cadet muttered under his breath. "No," another replied. "There's something else entirely." As the simulation ended, the Deathworlders gathered in their command post. None of them celebrated. For them, this wasn't a victory to gloat over. It was simply proof of their strength. Ryan looked at his team, his expression unreadable. "We did what we came here to do," he said finally. "But don't get comfortable. This is just the beginning." Lily nodded, her sharp eyes scanning the empty map. "There'll be more tests, harder ones. And we'll crush them too," Jake added, leaning back with a smirk. Maya remained quiet, her fingers still dancing over her device. She was already thinking ahead, planning for whatever challenge might come next. For the first time since arriving at the academy, the Deathworlders felt a strange sense of pride, not because they'd won, but because they'd proven that no obstacle was too great for them. Together, they were unstoppable. And the galaxy would soon learn exactly what that meant. The simulation ended abruptly, leaving the room in stunned silence. The instructors stared at their monitors, their faces pale with disbelief. Never before had a team completed the 10-year Galactic War scenario in such a short time. Most cadets took months of simulated combat to achieve even partial victories, yet the Deathworlders had crushed both factions in under an hour of real time. It was unprecedented and deeply unsettling. Ryan Harker stood quietly with his team, watching as other cadets turned to stare at them. Some looked angry, others jealous, and a few seemed genuinely awestruck. Whispers filled the air, spreading like wildfire. How did they do it? They didn't follow any of the rules. They're not human. Ryan ignored the murmurs, focusing instead on the instructors approaching their group. One of them, a tall man with graying hair, cleared his throat. "Cadets," he began, his voice measured but tinged with unease, "what you've accomplished here is extraordinary. I've never seen anything like it." Lidley Dawson crossed her arms, her sharp eyes narrowing slightly. "We did what we were told," she said simply. "We won." The instructor hesitated, glancing at his colleagues. "Yes, but your methods. They were unconventional, to say the least." Jake Monroe grinned, leaning casually against a nearby console. "Unconventional works," he replied, his tone laced with confidence. "You wanted total domination. That's what we gave you." Mia Torres remained silent, her fingers still absently tapping on her wrist device. She wasn't interested in explanations or justifications. To her, the results spoke for themselves. Ryan stepped forward, his expression calm but firm. "Survival isn't about following rules. It's about doing whatever it takes to come out on top. That's how we fight. That's how we win." The instructors exchanged uneasy glances. While some admired the Deathworlders' ingenuity, others couldn't shake the feeling that these cadets were too dangerous to control. But one thing was clear: they couldn't deny the results. As the instructors retreated to discuss the implications of the simulation, other cadets began to approach the Deathworlders. A group of them, led by a tall, broad-shouldered cadet named Carter, confronted Ryan and his team. "You cheated," Carter accused, his voice low and accusing. "There's no way you could have done all that without breaking the rules." Ryan raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Cheating implies there are rules worth following. We played smarter than you. That's all." Carter clenched his fists, frustration boiling beneath the surface. "This isn't over," he muttered before storming off, his friends trailing behind him. Lily watched them leave, shaking her head. "They'll get used to it," she said dryly. "Or they won't." Jake chuckled, cracking his knuckles. "Either way, they better stay out of our way." Back in their quarters, the Deathworlders regrouped to reflect on their performance. None of them were satisfied with mere praise. They knew this was only the first step. The galaxy was vast, and the challenges ahead would be far greater than a simple simulation. "We made a statement today," Ryan said, pacing the small room. "But don't think for a second that anyone's going to hand us anything. People will try to stop us, slow us down, or take us out if they think we're a threat. And they'd fail," Jake added confidently. "Maybe," Ryan replied, his tone serious. "But arrogance gets you killed. We keep moving forward, no matter what." Mia nodded, her focus fixed on her device. She was already analyzing data from the simulation, looking for ways to improve their tactics. For her, every challenge was an opportunity to grow stronger. Lily leaned back in her chair, her sharp gaze thoughtful. "The Academy brought us here to test us. But now they know what we're capable of. What happens next?" Ryan stopped pacing and looked at his team. "Whatever it is, we'll handle it. Together." For the first time since arriving, the Deathworlders felt a strange sense of belonging. They weren't accepted by the other cadets, or even fully understood by the instructors. But they didn't need acceptance. All they needed was each other. And together, they were ready to face whatever came next. Outside their quarters, the Academy buzzed with talk of their victory. News of the Deathworlder's unprecedented performance spread quickly, reaching ears far beyond the training grounds. Military leaders across the galaxy took notice, eager to recruit these unconventional fighters for real-world missions. Ryan glanced out the window, staring at the stars twinkling in the distance. Somewhere out there, new enemies waited, and the Deathworlders were more than ready to meet them. In the days that followed their victory, the Deathworlders became the talk of the Academy. Their names, Ryan Harker, Lily Dawson, Jake Monroe, and Mia Torres, spread quickly through the halls, whispered with a mix of admiration and fear. The instructors held private meetings to discuss the implications of what had happened. Some argued that the Deathworlders' methods were too unpredictable, even dangerous. Others insisted they were exactly the kind of cadets the galactic military needed: bold, resourceful, and unafraid to break the mold. For Ryan and his team, life at the Academy changed in subtle ways. Other cadets avoided them, unsure whether to resent or respect them. Some tried to mimic their tactics, poring over recordings of the simulation to understand how they had achieved such a decisive win. But no one could replicate the raw instinct and teamwork that defined the Deathworlders. Their bond wasn't something that could be copied. It was forged in the brutal crucible of Sci-Fi 7. Despite the attention the Deathworlders kept to themselves, they spent their time refining their skills, preparing for whatever challenges lay ahead. Lily pored over maps and battle strategies, searching for weaknesses in every scenario. Jake practiced flying maneuvers in the Academy simulators, pushing each ship to its limits. Mia worked tirelessly on her hacking tools, adding new features and safeguards to ensure she stayed one step ahead of any system she might encounter. And Ryan. He observed everything, his sharp eyes missing nothing. He knew their victory in the simulation had earned them respect, but it had also made them targets. One evening, as the team gathered in their quarters, an instructor entered without knocking. It was Commander Hayes, a stern woman with a reputation for being both fair and demanding. She carried a datapad under one arm and looked at the group with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "You've caused quite a stir," she began, her voice firm but not unkind. "Your performance in the simulation has caught the attention of higher-ups. They're intrigued by your potential." Ryan crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. "What does that mean?" "It means you're being considered for special assignments," Hayes replied. "Real missions, not simulations. Dangerous ones." Jake grinned, leaning forward eagerly. "Finally. About time we got out of this place." Hayes fixed him with a hard stare. "Don't mistake this for a reward. These missions will test you in ways the simulation never could. You'll face enemies who won't hesitate to kill you, and situations where failure isn't an option." Lily raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like our kind of work." Hayes nodded slowly. "That's why you're being considered. But I need to know, are you ready for this? This isn't just about proving yourselves anymore. Lives will depend on you." The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Ryan glanced at his team, seeing the same determination in their eyes that he felt burning within himself. "We're ready," he said finally. "We didn't come here to play games." Hayes studied him for a moment longer before nodding again. "Good. Expect orders soon." With that, she turned and left, leaving the Deathworlders alone with their thoughts. As the door closed behind her, Lily broke the silence. "So this is it. The real fight begins." Jake smirked, cracking his knuckles. "Bring it on. I've been waiting for something worth hitting." Mia remained quiet, her fingers moving deftly over her wrist device. She was already thinking ahead, planning for the unknown threats they would face. For her, preparation was key. Ryan stood by the window, gazing out at the stars. He felt a strange mix of excitement and unease. The Academy had been a proving ground, but now they were stepping into the wider galaxy, a place far more complex and dangerous than any simulation. Yet he knew one thing for certain. Together, they could handle anything. "We stick together," Ryan said, his voice steady. "No matter what happens, We watch each other's backs." The others nodded, united in purpose. They weren't just cadets anymore. They were soldiers, ready to carve their own path in the galaxy. And as the stars shimmered in the distance, Ryan allowed himself a faint smile. Whatever challenges awaited them, the Deathworlders would meet them head-on. The galaxy was watching, and they wouldn't forget the name of HFY 7, or the team that came from it. The days turned into weeks, and the Deathworlders threw themselves into their new assignments with unmatched intensity. Their first mission came sooner than expected. A covert operation to disable a pirate network operating in a remote sector of the galaxy. The pirates were ruthless, preying on supply ships and colonies alike. Other teams had tried and failed to stop them, but Ryan's team approached the task with the same precision they'd shown in the simulation. Lily mapped out the pirates' routes, identifying patterns in their attacks. "They're predictable," she said, pointing to a cluster of stars on the holographic display. "If we hit them here, we can cut off their escape." Mia worked quietly, hacking into the pirates' communication systems. She planted false orders, sowing confusion among their ranks. "Their leader trusts his tech too much," she muttered. "That's his weakness." Jake piloted a stolen freighter, slipping unnoticed into the pirates' territory. His reckless flying drew their attention, luring them into traps set by Lily and Mia. Meanwhile, Ryan led a small strike team, boarding one of the pirates' command ships. They moved silently, taking out guards and disabling critical systems before the enemy even realized they were there. Within hours, the pirate network was dismantled. The Deathworlders returned to base, their mission accomplished without a single casualty. Word of their success spread quickly, earning them both praise and suspicion from higher-ups. Some saw them as heroes. Others viewed them as unpredictable variables that needed to be controlled. As more missions followed, the Deathworlders proved themselves time and again. They infiltrated enemy strongholds, sabotaged weapons factories, and rescued hostages trapped in war zones. Each victory solidified their reputation, but it also made them targets. Enemies began to recognize their tactics, adapting to counter them. Yet Ryan and his team always stayed one step ahead, constantly evolving their strategies. Despite their accomplishments, the Deathworlders remained outsiders. Other soldiers admired their skills but kept their distance, unsure how to relate to people who seemed so different. Ryan didn't mind. He knew loyalty wasn't about fitting in. It was about standing by those who mattered most. And for him, that was his team. One evening, after completing a particularly dangerous mission, the group gathered in their quarters. The room was quiet except for the hum of Mia's device as she worked on updates. Jake sprawled on a chair, his boots resting on the table. Lily leaned against the wall, her sharp eyes scanning reports from their latest operation. Ryan stood by the window, gazing at the endless expanse of stars. "We've come a long way," Lily said finally, breaking the silence. "From HFY 7 to this." Ryan nodded, his expression thoughtful. "It's not over yet. There's still more out there, bigger threats, tougher fights." Jake grinned, stretching lazily. "Good. I'm just getting warmed up." Mia looked up briefly, her voice soft but firm. "We'll face whatever comes next. Together." Ryan turned to look at his team, pride flickering in his eyes. They weren't just soldiers. They were survivors, bound by shared struggles and unshakable trust. On HFY 7, they had learned to endure. Here, they had learned to conquer. Outside, the galaxy stretched endlessly, vast and full of unknown dangers. Somewhere beyond the stars, new enemies waited, forces far greater than anything they had faced before. But Ryan knew one thing for certain. The Deathworlders would meet them head-on, just as they always had. For now, though, there was peace, a rare moment of calm before the storm. Ryan allowed himself a faint smile as he turned back to the window. Together, they had proven that no obstacle was too great, no challenge insurmountable. Legends weren't born overnight, but the Deathworlders were well on their way to becoming one. And somewhere in the depths of space, the galaxy braced itself for the storm that bore the name of Cetheris 7.